Well, thank you once again for showing up to raising the consciousness of humanity. I am blessed to have a dear friend with me today, Rev Robin, also known as Reverend Robin White. And we just happened to really connect the other day at Starbucks, Robin. I'm so glad to, have had that conversation with you. I know we go to the same spiritual center, the Center for Spiritual Living Cultural Coast, and just we have a lot of things in common too, which I really was inspired about. But to share with the audience, so most of you, get to know and you'll learn a little bit more about Rev Robin through this conversation. She's an executive producer of a travel show, vice president of acquisitions at Black on Demand TV, award-winning author of a new book. And Rev Robin, you're going to have to help me with this. How do you pronounce that one?
Metanoia, Sophrosyne, Makarios, change, balance, blessings.
Beautiful. And of course, you have other books there too. We'll dive a little bit deeper into that. But what I'd like to do first is kind of ask a little bit about, and this is something I ask everybody because I get to feel their sense of purpose, their sense of drive, their essence, their presence. And what is it, if you could share, with our audience, what is it that inspired you to number one, become a reverend, number two, to uh, be able to be a leader in the area of television? I mean, I think that's clearly on your path. I can see that to be an author, to write these books and everything else, and just the presence that you bring as a spiritual leader too. What is it that kind of happened in your life to kind of put you on this direction?
Ron, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. And yes, we had the most magical conversation at Starbucks answering a call that you put out for some assistance. And I was so grateful to have that moment with you and actually learn a little bit about myself in the process. So thank you. Um, yeah, so. My life has been very circuitous. Um, I grew up in Boston. I was adopted away as an infant. I had a longing to find my family, but I'd always had a very creative and deeply spiritual um, love for God and for nature. I grew up with a very classical education, so I got introduced, honestly, to transcendentalism probably around fourth or fifth grade. And it was through poetry. My mother had a love for poetry. I had a teacher who was very much into the arts. And at age 9, she turned to me and she said, you can write these poems that you're reading all the time. Because I'd started reading around, I don't know, 3 or 4 in poetry. And at first I thought she meant just, write them down. But then she explained to me that I could use my own creativity. And you know how you have that proverbial light bulb go off in your
Mhm.
head? That was it for me. I started writing and I've never stopped. I have journals going back to when I was 15 and 16 years old, and I'm 64 now, so there's a lot of journals. But I've always had a love for nature and just listening to trees, and I grew up near the ocean, and we spent summers on Martha's Vineyard, and that has always been such a significant part of me, that connection to nature and the water and the sun and the ground beneath my feet. And I didn't really understand it as a spiritual process until I think in my 30s, I started reading, um, what is it, the Ninth Insight, the 10th Insight,
Hmm.
and just understanding that the trees hold this power and this energy that's connected through generations and centuries, and that energy is connected to us. And it was just a really beautiful, powerful thing. I had gone on a um, sort of I want to say traditional journey to connecting with my spiritual side. I grew up Catholic, went to Catholic schools from first grade all the way through high school. Um, I integrated my elementary school in third grade. I attended a sort of private Catholic girls' school in Milton. I was one of 8 Black students out of 500. So there was always this push and pull about identity and comfortability. I came out at age 13 or 14, just as I was entering high school. And that identity was something that felt really grounded and felt um, like this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm supposed to be.
Mhm.
And I'm supposed to be outspoken and help and share my story so that other teens aren't going through some of the challenges that they go through. So I got into television and radio while I was in high school
Wow.
and became an outspoken activist, which was really challenging because Catholic high school, Black lesbian in the 70s, when there weren't a lot of visible Black lesbians, and certainly not a lot of visible teenage Black lesbians or gay men for that matter.
Mm.
Um, so there's been all of this stuff. And then I realized that, well, pretty much when they told me I couldn't be a priest, I was kind of, okay,
Mm.
Catholicism might not be for me. Um, and I really went through a period in my 20s of really just trying to sort through what my spiritual practice was, what my beliefs were. And I don't
Mm.
think that that's unusual. I don't think that that's anything unusual. I think most of us at some point question what we've been taught and what we believe. Um, I went through the whole agnostic period. I met somebody who was a born again Christian, and every question I had, every response, she had an answer. So I ended up attending Black Baptist churches, which culturally for me was so out of the box. I grew up in white communities and a church that was, white. And because even in our community, the Black church was still following the traditions of, traditional Catholicism.
Mm.
And yeah, it was mind-blowing, sitting in church and watching these people have this very deep, powerful, physical response and connection to God. I became a youth minister and went to school at Gordon Conwell Center for Urban Ministerial Education to become a Baptist, Southern Baptist minister. I mean, that really sort of straight, narrow path. Um, and one day, with 2 friends who were also in graduate school, studying, we were holding a prayer service for the Black, gay, and lesbian community in Roxbury. And one of them said, "Oh, can I do the altar call?" And I said, "Sure," because I usually did it. I'm a prayer warrior.
Mm.
And we've got our heads bowed. And she starts with this Mother, Father, God, divine, infinite wisdom. I'm like, "What you talking about, Willis?"
Yeah.
So we got done with the service, and she explained to me that she had been going to Johnny Coleman's church in Chicago,
Mm.
and that there was this whole other understanding of what God is and what God represents. And she started talking to me about this, and this was during a break from school, like
Mm.
semester break. And I went back to school and I was studying women in the church in a classroom of 32 Pentecostal and Baptist students, ministers, 30 of whom were men. And all of a sudden, nothing that anyone said resonated. Nothing made any sense. And I realized I was on a different path.
Mm.
And I came to that understanding, and that was in the early 90s. And I started studying New Thought and metaphysics. I studied under a wonderful mentor, Bishop Dr. Barbara King, who has since made her transition to Ancestor, but at Hillside Chapel and Truth Center in Atlanta. Just a brilliant congregation full of people who are studying New Thought in the tradition of unity practices, but in the tradition of the Black church.
Nice.
It's just really, it was a really wonderful place to be. And I moved back to Boston briefly. I was in Unity there. And when I came back to Atlanta, I started attending the Spiritual Center of Atlanta under David Alt, which was just mind-blowing.
Oh, David All. Okay. Yeah.
Like, suddenly there was this really intense philosophy and questions that were answered, and everything just fit. And I had been fighting going back to graduate school for ministry for a while. Um, I had a horrible accident in 2017 that left me um, with a lot of mobility issues. And a friend said, "Oh, I'm going to this school and online in Sedona, Arizona." And I was like, University of Sedona and University of Metaphysics? She's like, yeah. I said, okay, God, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I'm not traveling. I can't go to work. I've got to figure this out. And so I enrolled and got my bachelor's degree in metaphysics. Um, became ordained, went through the ordination process, became a licensed practitioner through the International Metaphysical Ministries, and began working on my master's in the study of, you're going to love this, omphaloskepsis,
Hmm.
which is the practice of navel gazing.
Oh, wow.
So it's a meditation practice, and it really helps you get focused back on that inherent goodness
Hmm.
and divine birthright of who we are when we're children, and we're looking at the trees and we're looking at the stars and we're sitting in the classroom and we're watching the birds instead of doing our math work, and somebody says, pay attention.
Hmm.
Or we're sitting there just looking at stuff and our parents go, what are you doing? Go find something to do.
Yeah.
So we unlearn what we came here with, which
Hmm.
is an ability to download those messages from spirit, from source,
Hmm.
that divine connection that we already have. That a lot of us, when we're in our 40s, start taking yoga and
Yeah.
other practices to try and find our purpose. And it's already in us, it's already here.
Hmm.
So my master's thesis is on that, and my um, PhD will be in metaphysical pastoral counseling and just sort of helping people connect with what they already know,
Yes.
what is already real and truth, that we're all one energy, that
Yeah.
we're all one being, one love, one light. And when we're able to do that, when we're able to see ourselves as love and hold up that mirror as love and know just in our heart that
Hmm.
that is who we are, like that's that best part of ourselves, right? When I can recognize that in me, I can see that in everyone else.
Nice.
And so that's my experience. I had a lot of challenges, mostly health challenges that started in the early 2022. That was just this snowball cavalcade of illnesses and challenges and physical diseases and disabilities. And in that process, I just kind of embraced them and said, okay, this is what I'm going through. If having bilateral pulmonary embolisms and AFib means that I have to sit and not walk around or run or swim, then I'm going to figure out how to live my life from the seat of my pants and do what I need to do. And I started teaching writing online. I kept writing. I started doing counseling, a lot of grief counseling. Because I was adopted and found my birth family and had a step family, I had five parents. I tell people all the time, it took five people to create this.
Yeah, wow.
They did. And so I've, been there through their transitions to ancestor and really understand and have an empathy for a lot of my friends who are just beginning to experience this.
Mm,
Their parents are aging and going through ailments and making their transitions. So a lot of grief counseling, a lot of connection with people as they're on their way out.
mm,
People have always visited me when they're moving through that process. And so that's always been a part of my experience. Um, but I really love being able to help people figure out how to have a better quality of life. And so as I was going through these multiple physical challenges and got displaced by the hurricane, in the midst of one of them, I reached out to social media and started going online. And I happened onto TikTok one day when a friend of mine was promoting her book, and I picked it up and she did a workshop behind it. And I got into the workshop and she said, I'm going to hold a contest. And, if people send me in 2 minutes of raw footage of something that they enjoy doing, then, we'll see if we can't pull together some television shows.
mm,
And I thought, yeah, right. Sure. But I went ahead and did it anyway. And I think that that's the lesson for a lot of us is even if you doubt it, if the door is open for you, walk through it, do it
yeah.
anyway. If it's not for you, move to the next door.
Mm,
So what lands, lands. And so I went through this door and on Christmas Day in 2024, on a Zoom call with a bunch of folks, she named everybody who was getting a television show. There were 12 of us. Like the most amazing Christmas ever, right? To hear you're going to have a television show and I'm going to help you. I'm going to show you what you need to do to produce it. The caveat is you have to shoot it with your cell phone. And so every week I sat in a production meeting with these group of people, learning how to produce a television show, learning how to design it, learning how to figure out what it was I wanted to share. And for me, it really was about living in paradise. Live
mm,
in Sarasota. It is one of the most beautiful places. I moved here because it reminds me a lot of Boston. It
mhm.
doesn't have snow, but it's a it's a very similar place in terms of demographics, in
Yeah.
terms of arts, in terms of being a waterfront community, activities, abilities, connection. And the people here are just so loving and kind and giving and connected and warm and embracing. And I love this place. I love this community. And I wanted to share it. And I wanted to share it in particularly with this community of viewers that Black on Demand TV had cultivated in their first year with four
Mm,
podcasts. They had grown to 2 million subscribers,
wow.
and their shows were on Black on Demand, and they were going over to Roku and Amazon Fire. And this is where we were going to land, which was kind of a big deal. I still didn't know what to expect. But I wanted to share it with people. And one of the things about the African American community, a lot of times, if we don't see ourselves in places, we feel like we're not going to be welcomed or that
Mhm,
it is for us. And, in a time especially now where there's so much divisiveness in the world, in our
Yeah.
human it's just really nice to show up in these places and do all these amazing things and talk to people about the history. There's a beautiful African American history here.
Mm.
There's all sorts of people who have played a part in designing Sarasota. Leonard Reed, that a lot of folks don't know about the history of Newtown and Overtown, which is now the Rosemary District. Um, Oldham has been a significant part of bringing that to the forefront. And I understand she's a former newscaster here, but she's been um, really talking about it and sharing that information. And so I went to people who knew. I went to the places, I checked out the food, I went to the big cat habitat, I went to the Mayaca River, I hung out with the Audubon Society, checked out alligators at Mayaca. We went up into the canopy. Um, what else did we do? We went over to the community gardens. I
Hmm.
drank my first fresh coconut in the longest time. It was so good. We went to the Moat Marine before they moved to their new place.
Yep.
We went to the Embracing Our Differences exhibit. We went to the Art Ovation Hotel and all of the gorgeous art that's
Mm.
mostly by local people. I mean, there's so much to do here. And so season two, we're focusing very heavily on small businesses, homegrown. I've got uh, 8-year-old boy, Zahi, who has a lemonade stand that his
That's
family is
amazing.
growing this business. I mean, it's amazing. I've got Judith Williams, who's a business developer here in the area, Dr. Pamela Green from Bradenton, who
Mhm.
25 years has been bringing about the arts of young people and older people in the community. It's part fashion show. It's very upscale, and they have this beautiful violinist. I can't wait for people to hear Jonathan DeWitty. He's been around in the community for a while.
Mhm.
He's 19, just the sweetest young man. And I'm so excited about all of these people who are coming. Harvey Kaltzis, who you know,
Yep.
is going to be doing a live interview along with Vicky Oldham at the Leonard Reed House on February 25th at 5 p.m. We want people to come and sit in the audience over at the Leonard Reed House and listen to this amazing history of what's happened here in Sarasota in the Black community, but also what's going on in the Gulf and
Mm.
treasure hunt that he's been on. It's just brilliant. He is such a wealth of information.
Oh yeah.
Um, we've got some folks who are coming in. I'm really excited about all of the ways that we get to share. And so that's going to be this season two. And then I'm moving the show to a weekly format. Um, we're very likely going to be moving to Tubi. Um, so we're in the process of having that happen. Um, my show's been seen by like 3 million plus people since November.
Yeah.
I don't understand that number. I guess if it were dollars in my bank account, I
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's just mind blown because a year ago I was still homeless.
Mm.
I was still couch surfing and driving Uber and Lyft and trying to figure stuff out. And now I'm in a place where I get to connect people to experiences
Yes.
and open pathways and share with folks these wonderful opportunities to live. And even if it isn't here in Sarasota, hopefully they're seeing this and they're thinking, I can go check this out in my own community. I can go do this. Going sit by the waterfront is really great. Taking a walk through the woods is an opportunity. Going to a garden, a neighborhood garden is a great idea. There's different ways that we get to experience life. We're talking to the folks from Second Heart Homes about their ability to help people who are unhoused in our community.
Mm.
permanently help them, which is a really big deal. And so
Nice.
I'm very excited about all of the different ways that we get to share what I believe is our divine selves in this very human experience, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm super excited that this is where this path has led me. And a few weeks ago, while I was just working on my show, I got a call from my boss, the owner of the network. She's a young woman out of Atlanta and Vegas, and her offices are here in Orlando. And she said, "Hey, listen, I want you to come meet me in Orlando, and we're going to talk." And I said, "Sure." So I got in my car and drove that morning. And over breakfast, she informed me that she was promoting me. I mean, I'm an executive producer. I own my show, but Black on Demand distributes it. But she was offering me a position as vice president of acquisitions. And what that
Wow.
means is that I get to help people who have these beautiful dreams. You know, we get
Yeah.
on TikTok and we put out content. We get on IG and we throw up our little shorts and films and things that
Mm.
we've done. And, we hope that something will go viral on our YouTube page, right?
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
10,000 people will see it. And we're like, or if we hit that big million, oh my goodness. But sort of hit or miss or haphazard. And what I get to do is bring those people in-house
yeah.
and put them on platforms like Amazon Fire, Roku, Tubi, Fossum, um, Amazon Prime. We've got about 30 platforms that we're connected with, including Netflix. And
Nice.
so there's opportunities for people to bring their podcasts and their film shorts and their series and
Mhm.
the work that they've already done and bring it to us, and we get to take a look at it and help them get distributed to some of these platforms, make some money, but really be seen, which is
Yeah.
what we all want, right? We all want to be seen and heard. We all want our narratives, our stories told. And
Yep.
I've been getting like these wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I get to do. At the end of the day, it all really comes down to wanting to help people get connected in a way that's meaningful to their source, to
Mm.
their inner most beautiful, brilliant self, right? Because that's what creators do.
Yep.
We're mirrored reflections of the divine that created us. And we're out here creating all of this beauty and wonder and awesomeness. And I get to help them bring that to the forefront and connect people with experiences and life that I hope, my hope is always that it makes somebody's life just a little bit better.
A little bit better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing. I think what you shared, Rev Robin, is you are you basically are the presence of perseverance, getting through the tough times, and somehow that's molded you, and you've probably always been this way, but to be that like a spiritual leader, a person that has a sense of an open heart, a different type of leadership than maybe we grew up with, but a leadership that is the leader of today, which is helping people know that, yeah, times can be tough, but we have a spark of purpose or joy within us or whatever we want to call it. And then you're shining your light as well as you're helping other people shine their light too, which I think is beautiful. And it's
Yeah.
funny how you shared when you first started talking about the 10th insight. I made a mental note because That was it James Redfield? The
Yes,
yeah, and he originally wrote the Celestine Prophecy,
right.
and I remember reading that, and I remember reading the 10th Insight. And oddly, I believe a lot of the people that are on that somewhat of a spiritual calling or that journey, whatever you may call it, somewhere in their life they picked up either one or both of those books. And it's funny back then, I think it was like I was like keeping it like in a brown paper bag when I was like in public, like, oh, I don't know if I want like people to, but then you'd find other people that were reading the same book. And
Everyone was,
yeah,
especially Celestine Prophecy. And it was in that moment that I realized I had always chosen to live in spaces that had lots of greenery,
yes.
like lots of spaces that had trees and it fed me. I grew up across the street from Franklin Park, which is the jewel in the emerald necklace of the Olmsted Wright
Mm,
brothers have built this beautiful chain of parks. They're the ones who designed Central Park in New York and the
okay.
parks in Philly. And I grew up there. It had several zoos and aviary, 18-hole golf course,
Mm,
stables, a creek, and just all of this space to wonder and to wander. And I did that growing up. And then whenever I moved around the city, I always sought those sorts of spaces that had trees and water. And when I moved from Boston to Atlanta, Atlanta's a big forested city. So I spent 20 years there and just always in the greenery. Left because it didn't have the ocean. 5 hours got too long to travel. But um, yeah, and that it's interesting that you talk about the light because my favorite verse from the Bible is Matthew 5:16, right? Let your light shine among men that they may see your good works and praise the Father who is in heaven, right? That's that
mm,
whole little verse where, this little light of mine comes from. And
yeah.
something that I always keep in the forefront um, is that, we are light.
Mm,
We're pure light. And we're walking around in this meat suit. Eventually, we're going to shed it. We are who we are before we step into it, and we are who we are after we leave it.
mm,
And it's all connected. It's all, many fingers on the same hand. So, but yeah, my faith, and Reverend Teresa alluded to this. I want to say, I don't know if it was this week or the week before, but I'd been talking a lot about faith having legs.
mm,
You know, it's great to have faith. I've got tremendous faith. Like I know that God's got me no matter what. It doesn't always look like what I want to. Sometimes it looks like what I really don't want it to look like.
mm,
But that saying faith without works is dead. And it's great to have faith, but you've got to put it into practice. You have to have movement.
mm,
And those were the things that I really came to understand a lot during this last um, year and a half. I said I was homeless at Christmas time. I was living in a Motel 6 and for a couple of months. And before that, I was couch surfing. And after that, I was couch surfing before FEMA got things sorted. But I had been very ill
mm,
in 22. I had an appendectomy that snowballed into, AFib, bilateral pulmonary embolisms, a postmenopausal bleed, like low blood count, no iron, passing out just left and right. Couldn't afford to take care of myself in the place that I was in. Fortunately, my one of my best friends, Margarita Asensio, was leaving her house in Sarasota and moving in with her partner Linda and in St. Pete. And she said, "Well, you can take over the house." And so the rent was like half of what I was paying, and I was so excited and put some stuff in storage and had some stuff with me. Immediately got COVID, um, kidney stones that became septic, was fighting sepsis for about 6.5 weeks,
mm,
came home found out that I had some anomalies in my mammograms, had to go through that process. And while I was waiting for the results, had to get the kidney stones out, and then went through a hysterectomy 3 days before Helene hit. And then, of course, a week later, the roof blows off of the house. It's like you can't make this stuff up. And this was like the good stuff. This wasn't even like all the other things that had happened in the year prior to it or two
Yeah.
years to it. But you learn, okay, this is this experience. What's the blessing? What's the
Hmm.
lesson? The blessing for me was realizing, gosh, just how much community I have here,
Yeah.
how much love there is, how much generosity.
Mhm.
My spiritual community was amazing. My friends at Unity of Sarasota were just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
My family is mostly up north. I have a
Yeah.
huge family, but none of like one sister is here. And, I was like really scared.
Mm.
And people showed up. They showed up with food. They showed up to hold my hand. They showed up to listen. People dropped coins in my bank account to make sure that I was okay. I had one friend who just like paid my rent, because I couldn't do anything. And, you know, I know that I believe in the law of reciprocity, and I know that I've done these things for others. And so I understand that, what we sow is what we reap.
Mhm.
But I couldn't have landed in a better place,
Mm.
in terms of this community and how powerful it is and how deeply spiritual the connections are. In a time when we're looking at red versus blue and this one versus that one and this color versus that color and, immigrant versus, native. It's like, hey, you know what? One race, human race. Yes, we have all of these other things that we are, that
Yeah.
we call our identity in this very small moment in the scheme of things. But at the end of the day, the love is the most prevalent thing, you know, not just the love for each other, but the love is energy that is so powerful and
Mm.
so defining for all that we are. I tell people that all of this noise that we hear in the media,
Mm.
chaos is loud. All that noise, just chaos. Because love is soft and peaceful and quiet.
Mm.
And chaos has to be loud because there's so much more love. And
Mm.
there's so much more of us who are grounded in our understanding of our connection to source, whatever that looks like, whatever denomination, whatever faith practice, we're
Yeah.
grounded in this understanding that there's something greater and bigger at work defining what it is that this life is going to be and creating our pathway, ordering our steps, right? Chaos can't sustain itself. If you've
Mm.
ever been with children who are noisy and loud and you're screaming at them and everything else, you know that they don't ever hear you. But if you sit there and you say, hey, everybody turns and they settle down,
Yeah.
you know, love is soft, love is
Yeah.
peaceful, love feels good. It's the guiding light in all of us. It's our
Yeah.
true north.
Yeah.
And all of this other stuff, yeah, we've seen it before. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautifully said, Rev Robin. I love so much of the various sound bites and things that you shared during this interview. I would say also, like when you spoke on having to have faith and then also movement. And I see a third thing in you, which is also like that sense of purpose. And maybe that sense of purpose came through the life of the challenges that you saw a purpose or felt a calling within. I know quite often I'll see or I'll have an interview with somebody and there's something in their life that, sure, it could have turned the completely other way and that person could have been bitter their entire life, but instead you rose up with a sense of what I would say soul bravery in a way. But it's also knowing that it's not just something you're called to do. I mean, you chose to follow a leadership uh, position as a reverend, and you went out to Sedona. I love that part of your story. But also to say, oh, well, not only can I be that shining example, but I feel that calling also to help others. It's like that compassionate part that you have, and I know we all have that, but I can definitely sense that in your unique calling that you bring forth.
Well, thank you for that, first of all. Um, I was adopted away as an infant, and I was adopted by two really wonderful um, people who had servant hearts. Um, Good people. That said, even good people with the best of intentions can have challenges. And
Mm,
as a child, I faced quite a few of them with my mother. Um, she wasn't really built for children, you know, but she wanted them because she knew my father wanted them.
mm,
They had had one together, and she had lived with her mother her whole life. My Nana was just, she listened to every poem. She listened to every music piece that I played. I grew up playing the flute. Um, we'd sit and play checkers together. We'd sit on the front porch. We had a glider that we'd sit and rock, and I would eventually fall asleep, and she'd put a blanket over me and leave me out there until dinner. And she was very loving and very kind. And she knew that her daughter struggled with motherhood.
mm,
Um, my father basically thought the sun rose and set in my butt, like just daddy's girl. I was it.
mm,
My sister, who was a few years older than I was, and I didn't get along at all. She was also adopted from another family. I think, I came along and she had that sibling rivalry just kind of built right in. She was probably about four, I think, when I was born. Um, we just never hit it off.
mm,
And she was clearly my mother's child, and I was clearly my daddy's child. And at some point during our teen years, or my teen years, we realized that, and my grandmother had already passed, we realized that my father had a second family
mm.
across town. And I didn't understand at the time, but my mother was absolutely heartbroken. She was devastated.
That
She
she
loved,
must have been. Yeah, yeah.
but she also had, she was very rigid. We had to be perfect. And you have to think in the 60s and 70s growing up and being African American, integrating a white elementary school, even a Catholic one, that there were challenges. I learned later that like nearly a third of the parents had pulled their kids out of my class
Oh,
because, it didn't matter that mom was this wonderful college educated stay-at-home mother. My father worked for the mayor of Boston, that my grandmother was in the home, that we were intelligent, well-mannered, like they sold the whole package. And the parents who remained made it a point to create a bubble.
hmm.
So I had a wonderful childhood at school.
Mm.
but I couldn't make any mistakes. I couldn't do anything wrong because somebody was always watching. In addition to a very good education, I played the flute. As a classical flautist, I started playing with an orchestra when I was about 10 or 11, and I started playing with the Boston Philharmonic for a season when I was 12.
Oh, wow.
Um, Duke Ellington was my grandmother's first cousin. I got to play for him in my living room when I was about 10 or 11 years old.
Really?
Cool. So there were all these ways that we had to be perfect. I played tennis, grew up playing tennis, going to tennis lessons, hated it. Swimming, summer camps, summer on the vineyard.
Mm.
My family, my aunt and uncle and cousins lived in Sag Harbor, Long Island, so we were in the Hamptons at times. There were a lot of really good memories, and there were a lot of really tough ones.
Mm.
Um, Feeling inadequate, being told that, I'm glad that you like to write. I'm glad that you like to write all of these poems, but nobody wants to hear what a Black girl has to say.
Mm.
Because that was the time and tenor, of the 60s and 70s. Maya Angelou hadn't published Caged Bird yet. There
Yeah.
weren't a lot of Black female authors. There were
Yeah.
certainly, several in the um, Harlem Renaissance, but not very many women.
Mm.
And so, mom in her protective state wanted me to, do things in a certain way and be a certain way. And I felt very unhappy, lonely, um, scared, out of place, um, and really grew up feeling that way and feeling like I wanted to be a person who could help kids like me have a better life. And so I went into teaching.
Nice.
And I did non-traditional roles. I went, to private schools and taught, or I worked on the board who that determined what the credentials needed to be for school-age childcare
Hmm.
after programs. And I worked in an immersion program in Cambridge for a few years and taught. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I taught AP style journalism to high school students on a newspaper and creative writing to kids who were incarcerated and who were in
Oh,
alternatives.
wow.
And
That
then
must have been that must have been a benefit or a life changing for them.
it was for all
Yeah.
of us, really. And then I taught creative writing to girls who had been trafficked. So
That's
I
tough.
got to have lots of experiences with kids. I taught cooking as an ESL program to kids who were Cape Verdean in Massachusetts. I mean, there were like all these really wonderful experiences where I got to support children and help them grow. I was a nanny at various times. I'm still friends with most of the families. Their kids are now, in their 30s and 40s. I've mentored young people who are now in their 40s, some encroaching on 50. And I've always had that mindset that I wanted to help, help
Mm.
parents, help kids, help families, um, help the LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
I'm a performer for a very long time. I got my start. I got my start writing erotica at a time when nobody was writing erotica. And it was very interesting. I did a lot of performances. I was in an ensemble in Boston and then had a band that went on tour all over the country called Sweet Black Molasses. And we
Nice.
performed with some big names and big festivals, 10, 20,000 people. It was like amazing to like see the sea of people um, and have them listening to my work. So I've always been on stage.
Yeah.
Um, I've always felt very comfortable in front of a microphone. I've felt comfortable in front of people. I had a television show in my 20s called Gay Boston, which was a magazine format that took us around to different places in New England where gay people could feel safe and comfortable to go vacation or eat or get services. And
Nice.
so when I did my show, I thought about the show that Mary Kennedy and Kennedy Publishing in Boston had done. Um, I had done television and movies and theater all throughout my teens and 20s and 30s. And some of my,
Wow.
I had a
When,
sh
when did the writing come in? Like the books, like you were sharing your books. Do you have those books?
Yes, so I started writing at age 9. I was actually in one of the first um, gay and lesbian poetry readings in Boston at UMass Boston, right around, I think, my senior year in high school.
Okay.
And I got connected with the women from the Combahee River Collective, which is a Black womanist collective that looked at feminism from the Black perspective. Donna Kate Russian, Stephanie Bird, Demita Frazier, Barbara and Beverly Smith, who were the forerunners of the Black feminism, womanism that we
Nice.
see now with people like Alexis Pauline Gumbs. Um, and it's just really powerful to know that those were the people who poured into me. They were like, "We love your work. Can you come on our radio show on WBUR?" And it was just
Nice.
like, "Oh my gosh," and I started doing that, and then when the Black boys started disappearing in
Hmm.
Atlanta, I had written a piece that got published in one of the local papers in Boston and just sort of became the piece that I performed everywhere. Um, and then I just started doing shows. I started doing poetry readings and slams, and people would include my work in their anthologies. So at one point, I think I was in like 30 or 40 anthologies. Um, and in around 2000, I was working with some folks preparing what's been known as the Zuna Institute. It was a collective of, or a conference of, for Black lesbians around the country because we found that there were people doing similar stuff, but
Hmm.
nobody had connected.
Connected them.
So
Yeah.
we all came together in Atlanta, and the woman who was the, point person in Atlanta had invited me to join her, and we started working together, and then we became partners
Oh,
and
nice.
together for about 9 years. Um, and one of the things that came out of that was that I didn't have a book of poetry. I had all this poems, and she
Hmm.
said, "We're going to teach you how to run a business so that you never have to work for anybody again."
Nice.
So this little book was the first book.
Okay. Nice. Yeah.
And I designed the cover myself. I was so proud of it. It
I
was
like
like,
it. Yeah.
and then, this is young me at like
Oh,
I
wow.
probably like 39 or 40. And it's just a collection of love poems, and some of them are pretty outrageous, and some of them are, poems to people that I've loved, and my and poems to my dad, and um
Is that still available? Like,
I
can you?
have I have the only copies of it. I do have some for sale. We
Yeah.
will be re-releasing this one and this one, which hit home for a lot of people, Reflections
Yeah.
of a Life Well Spent. Um, People started reading this and they really connected with it. And at the end of my relationship, I wrote this in a matter of a few months. Um, and it talks about everything. It talks about you know, the changing landscape of your body. Like I had time to finally just look at, what had happened to my body over the past decade and,
Mm.
leaving my partner and all of my dreams behind and, my kid that I'd been raising, my great niece and sending her back to her grandmother. And suddenly like rediscovering myself. And a lot of us in middle age women, right? We go through divorces
Mm.
and middle age crisis and health, and suddenly our, body parts, gravity's catching up with us, and gray hairs, and we're trying to redefine what beauty is, and empty nest, and discovering our purpose.
Yeah.
And this book has a lot of that. It also, I found my birth parents when I was 46.
Oh, wow.
My mom and my siblings and my cousins and aunts and uncles. And my mother was just everything that I ever wanted or needed. And the day that she hugged me, it was like all of the trauma and stuff of my childhood just melted away.
Really?
It was a beautiful moment. I actually have a photograph of it somewhere I keep in this house. And it's just her looking at me and us looking at each other for the first time. She had never wanted to let me go.
Mm.
I was taken from her.
Oh, boy.
My family, my father's family tried to get me back, and my adoptive family had power and prestige, and were able to just say, no, we're keeping her.
Wow.
My adopted mother had been very cruel to my mom, who had me at 18. She had been in the foster care system her whole life because my grandmother had died in childbirth.
Mm.
And because there was a question of her parentage, whether or not my maternal grandfather was um, a person of color, they were concerned that she might come out looking black.
Mm.
So they put her back in the system.
Mm.
She um, she held on to that.
Mm.
She would claim herself as black just because they they put that on her. And when she finally went to see them, I think she was in her 20s, they told her if she would denounce her father, that they would welcome her back into the family. It was pretty ugly. But my
Yeah.
mother, my adoptive mother, complicated that. And when I found my birth mom, I got a lot of the story that I had also gotten from my dad's girlfriend
Okay.
at the time, who told me, she had been wanting me to come live with them forever. I had a half brother who was 3 months younger than I am. He's since passed. He was also a metaphysician. We were very close.
Mm.
Um, but all of like I've said, it took five people to create this. My birth mother and birth father passed away 3 years after I met them over Mother's Day, like a day apart.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and he was in Boston, she was in Florida. He had been in hospice, she had been perfectly fine, and she started having some back pains. It turns out she had sepsis, kidney stones. And so when I got kidney stones and sepsis, it was kind of like,
Oh, my
oh,
goodness. Oh, really?
this is
Wow.
what it is. Let me get to the hospital.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, all of those things contributed to, my creativity. My mother, my birth mom, was a writer. Um,
Your creativity and your strength.
yes, my adopted mom, she gave me all of the educational tools that I needed to
Yeah.
succeed. Both of my fathers, were very intellectual, and all of them had servant hearts. And this is the book that
God like me.
it's part of a series, God Like Me.
Nice.
It is beautifully illustrated by, his name was he goes by Utham,
Hmm.
but Uthman, but his name was Paul. He
Yeah.
died during COVID, so
Okay.
yet
Oh,
but
wow.
beautiful pictures, and it's a metaphysical book for
Nice.
children
For
for that.
children. Okay.
Um, It asks a lot of questions. The little girl,
Yeah.
Raven, is very irreverent. It's part of a series, so the rest of the books will be coming along, and there'll be a movie short of it soon.
Oh, beautiful.
Um, she asks a lot of questions about God. She's told by her godmother that she goes to church with her godmom and she hears that she's a reflection of God and she wants to understand what that is. So
Hmm.
she has questions, does God wear braids? Does God wear pajamas? Does God sing? Does God really like broccoli? Because I like chocolate chip cookies,
All the curiosity questions that kids ask. Yeah.
And so you never see any of the whole adult, you just see this little girl, and the
Hmm.
questions are never answered. And I left them open-ended because I wanted people to be able to take this book and sit down with their kids, read it, and answer the questions according to their own beliefs.
Nice.
It's clearly metaphysical. I mean, it's clearly the ways in which the ways in which we see God,
Yeah.
God, she says, God made me healthy. Does God really like broccoli? I like chocolate chip cookies. Does God wear pajamas? Does God wear braids? Does God like music? Does God like it when I sing? Does God hear me pray at night? And little one, my godmommy said, God looks just like you. God is in you. God hears your prayers and knows the answers before you even ask the questions.
Oh, nice.
Little
Yeah.
one, when you're quiet and still, you can hear God say, I love you. You're a perfect reflection of God, and that makes you perfect just as you are. We don't tell
Beautiful.
our children that enough. We don't tell ourselves that enough. We're
You know
perfect.
what? That's not only a book for children, that's a book for all of us. Well,
So
with that, I really appreciate your time. I mean, your story is powerful, it's transformative, it really gives hope to people out there. Rev Robin, I really, how do people find you? Like, if anybody wants to find out about your TV show and find you
Yes.
online stuff,
So they should check out, first of all, my show is airing on Roku and Amazon Fire on
yeah,
the Black on Demand channel. So if you go on to Roku, you just have to, say, show me the Black on Demand channel and it'll bring it up. And the show is called Hidden Treasures, Sarasota, Tampa Bay. I'm very proud of this little show. Um, you can also go to blackondemandtv.com and you will find it there. It's streaming and its daily lineup. It comes up pretty randomly. Um, you can find me on Facebook, Robin G. White.
yeah,
You can find me on TikTok and IG I think it's under at Poolside Pastor,
okay.
because I used to do my inspirational messages from the swimming pool when I was learning how to walk again. My friend Ife nicknamed me that. So yeah, Hidden Treasures, Sarasota, Tampa Bay, and hashtag Poolside Pastor. You'll probably find some of those things. Poolside Pastor is also where you'll find my YouTube channel.
Nice,
And I do have a website that will be up by the beginning of next week. It's robingwhite.com. So
beautiful.
be able to find everything there.
Yeah.
So all of it.
And we'll make sure to put all the links within the description below this video on YouTube so people can actually access that information. I really appreciate your time today, Rev Robin. I really, we're going to have to do Starbucks again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I hope that you'll be joining us on Hidden Treasures, Sarasota, Tampa Bay. You know,
Yes.
come and talk with us on the 25th about this wonderful podcast and the work that you're doing. We'd love to have you join us.
I put it
So
on my calendar. I will be there.
it's at Leonard Reed House over on North Orange and Martin Luther King in Sarasota.
Definitely. Look, I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. And so, listen, one last thing before we go, Ron. I have to say that, it's been an amazing year, but it was made possible because of Swan Simpson, who is the CEO and founder of Black on Demand TV and the upcoming podcast Build Black. She's the head of Wellness on Demand, which will be another channel we'll be talking about soon. But I could not go on without at least thanking her for the tremendous opportunity that she's given me, and to my colleague Cortelia Harris, who's the VP of Marketing over at BOD. We're doing amazing things, and we're bringing people's dreams to life. So I had to make sure I tell you that and just say thank you so much for this time with you. I just really appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Rev Robin. It's great that we're able to get together today, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story and everything that's it's been inspiring to the audience. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care.